What's up YouTube, welcome to the video. So the topic is dependency injection and it is one of the most important topics of .NET and I will try to make it as simple as possible. So let's get started. So for starters, let's understand what is a dependency. A real life example would be an engine for a car, or we can say that an engine is a dependency of a car. Or in other words, we can say that the car has a dependency of an engine. A coding example would be an object for a class. So a dependency is an object or property for a class to work properly. So a dependency is an object or property for a class to work properly. To make it more simple, dependency is just a variable. So it's a variable that is needed for a class to work properly. We call it variable because an object, a property, a simple string, everything falls in the category of a variable. So now, what is dependency injection? In order for a car to work, it needs an engine. So what do? We inject the engine into the car. Advantage that we get is we can test out the car with different engines. You will get this final point in a moment. This is a real life example. Now let's move on to the second example. In order for a weather class to work, we need a city object. So basically a weather class could be a class which provides the information of a weather and it needs a city object to work properly because the city object would have a name and coordinates to where the information of weather is needed. So what do? We inject an instance of the city object into the weather class. The advantage that we get is we can test out the functionality of the weather class with different configuration. So we can put out different cities information inside the city object, pass it into the weather class, and the weather class will work like a charm. So let's move on to the practical implementation. So let us understand what is not a dependency injection. So we have an engine class which has these properties, and then we have a car class which has this engine, and whenever we initializes the car, it's making its engine on its own. So we cannot provide different engines to the car to test the car that which engines works best, because it's creating its own engine and we don't have an option to provide the car with a different engine. Or for example, we have not created an engine for now and we want to give a mock engine for the car to work so we can test other functions till the real engine is created. So we cannot do that. Now this is dependency injection. We have a class engine and we have a car class, and this car class has a little changes. We still have the constructor, but this constructor is taking an instance of the engine. So we need to provide an instance of the engine for the car to work. So we are asking for the dependency to be injected through this constructor. And how we can do that? So this is our main class drive and this is a method, and inside this method I have this engine called E2 and I want to test this engine within my car, or I can say that I want to install this engine into my car. So I have created a car object and I have passed the E2 engine. And if I don't pass this E2 engine, the car class will generate an error because we have set a constructor injection. So it is required to inject an engine within the car. So this is what dependency injection is all about. Now we have different ways to inject a dependency. We have the second method, which is method injection, which is also known as interface injection. So we have an interface. Interfaces are mock classes. So they are not real classes. An object or an instance cannot be made with an interface. So this iEngine class decides that this engine class should have a start engine method. So it will give an error if we don't put the start engine method in the engine class, because the iEngine is imposing that any class with the inheritance of iEngine is supposed to have this start engine method. So now let's proceed. So we have a car class and we have the main engine, but this time we are not using a constructor to get the engine, but we are using an approach that when we run the car, we are required to provide an engine, and we have used this iEngine so that the advantage of using this iEngine is now we can provide any engine, not just this engine class, but we can now provide any engine and the car will run. The one requirement that we have put is the whatever engine we are providing should be inherited with this iEngine interface. Like this engine is inherited with this iEngine interface. So now when this engine is provided, we assign it to main engine and then we start the main engine. And this start engine is coming from here. So it will say engine started. Now this is how it is implemented. We have an engine E5 this time, and I have created my car and I have not given it any engine because we are using method injection. So when I'm using my car dot run the car, so the method, this method, then I have to provide it with an engine. So I have provided it with an engine. So this engine will go here and the engine will be assigned to the main engine of the car and then it will start working. So this is how method injection works. Now for the last part, we are talking about property injection, which is also called setter injection. So as we had before, we have an iEngine interface. Then we have the engine class which inherits from the iEngine, and we have now another interface which is iCar, and this iCar has a main engine and method which is run the car. And we have this get set because it is a property and we can provide the injection through this setter method. Now we have a Mercedes class. This is our actual class. So we have taken from the interface iCar, which enforces us that a car must have a main engine. So it has a main engine, and the car must have a run the car method. So it has the run the car method. Now in the driver class, which is our actual class where we uses things, we have created an interface iCar, and it can have any of the car. So again, this is the advantage of using dependency injection, that here we can have any car. So instead of Mercedes, we can have another car. Then we are providing car dot main engine a new engine. This is the property that we are using in the second line. So we are setting the new engine and then using the run the car method to start the car. Because we have provided car with a new engine, it now the Mercedes now has an engine. So this car, new Mercedes, now has an engine to work with. So when we start car dot run the car, it will work. So the dependency injection is all of this. And dependency injection is linked to other .NET topics that are which are very important for you to know. So I will cover these topics on my channel, so stay tuned. So this is all for the video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and do subscribe to the channel. See you next time.